So far I've covered a few different snowboarding games this winter, but now I'm going to look at SSX Tricky on the Xbox and also the PS2. Let's take a look. Welcome to Rad Rat Video. I'm usually a skateboarding channel and I talk about where tricks came from and all other kinds of skateboarding topics, but for the winter I'm taking a look at some snowboarding games. Back when the PS2 was released, you might remember all the shortages they had. Stores just couldn't keep the system in stock. One time, my mom was at the store and she saw one. Some other lady had taken one to the counter and asked them to hold it for her while she went to get her checkbook or whatever it was. But my mom walked up and she pointed to the policies on the wall and said, "Hey, are you allowed to hold that?" They said no, so she bought it out from under her. She brought it home for me and my brother, but unfortunately, she didn't pick up any games. We ended up playing Spider-Man on PS1 all night. But the next day, my dad brought home SSX, which was my first next-gen game, and also my first snowboarding game, if you don't count Too Extreme. So when I got some suggestions to review one of the SSX games, I jumped at the opportunity and I decided to try Tricky, which is the second game of the series. It's kind of a remix to the original instead of being a true sequel. I never played it at the time for whatever reason, and I was excited to give it a shot.
So if you aren't familiar with the game in general, here's what it's all about. You have all these different characters that you can choose from, and they're all really well voice acted by David Arquette, Lucy Liu, Macy Gray, Billy Zane. You pick a character and you do some racing. So let's take a look at the World Circuit mode. These are the ones that you want to do to unlock stuff in the game. Start the race and it lets you know who your friends and enemies are. I don't know what this does exactly, but your enemies are more likely to try to knock you over. I don't think friends do anything, but to be fair, I just punched everybody, so I made enemies really fast. You risk them coming after you, but knocking someone down fills your boost meter, so it's worth it. And sometimes they talk crap to you after a race.
Don't you dare try that stuff again!
Why don't you just chill out?
The other way to fill your boost meter is by doing tricks, so let's talk about the trick control. To wind up for a spin or flip, you hold down the jump button and a direction on the D-pad. Usually, I like to steer with a joystick, so I have to lose steering control for a second when I switch over. Then you let go of jump and you hold the direction to keep spinning. You can add in grabs by using the triggers and face buttons in different combinations. You can do slides by jumping on a rail. It will automatically lock you in. It can be really hard to get these to work though. You'll miss them a lot of the time. To balance, you have to move left and right on the left joystick, which will make you shift from side to side on the rail. It's much easier in a board or lip slide compared to a 50-50 because you have the whole length of the board. Hitting left and right on the D-pad will make you spin, but you can get yourself into some weird positions trying to work the D-pad and the joystick at the same time. That's about all there is to it, but that's plenty because there's too much other stuff to worry about during an actual race. There are alternate paths, obstacles, and shortcuts to keep an eye out for. These big glass panes show you where to cut through the course, and the color shows you how big of a shortcut it is. Blue will be small and red will be big. But there's this one that I kept trying that basically took me nowhere and I kept getting stuck. I don't know if I needed a higher speed stat to have enough to clear this, but it seems like they just kind of messed this up. But in general, the design of the levels is really good, and the alternate paths help mix things up. There are parts with really tight paths or icy sections. There's also this area where you can choose to hit the ramp to get points and earn boost, or you can ride straight down the middle and get through there faster. There's also this high risk area where you can either air over all the barriers in the half pipe, or you can try to ride down the middle and narrowly get through all the passages. You can try different things on different runs and try to refine your technique. Especially in the later levels, like this one in Tokyo. It's like a giant pinball machine. You can ride around on these water slide type of things, which will help you kind of go straight and avoid obstacles on the course below. Down here you have these walls that you have to open by pushing buttons. You can also make these poles go back into the ground to smooth it out. This level is when the game is at its best. Completely over the top, ridiculous, and completely impossible in real life. There are speed boosters, giant fans, huge things that can move around and hit you. I always think that white flash is funny. A lot of Xbox games have stuff like this where it doesn't fit, but that's because the game is HD and the white fade out box thing is standard def. They'll forget to upscale certain assets when they port it from PS2. But this game isn't even in HD, so it's just kind of weird that it's got that glitch. Aside from that small thing, I didn't run into any other glitches. The frame rate drops a tiny bit from time to time, but it's really not noticeable. The game engine is really solid and everything feels polished. Plus, the control is really good too. The steering and the carving feel good, the ice feels like ice, and it's rare that something goes wrong that feels like it wasn't your fault. It's important that the design and the controls are good because you're going to be playing these levels over and over and over. You know how a circuit mode works in most games like Mario Kart or even Gran Turismo? You race in a few different tracks and you get a medal at the end. If you get first place 3 times and third place once, chances are you'll still get the gold because all the races are weighted. SSX is totally different. Instead of all of that, you're just racing the exact same course over and over. It's like the qualifiers, semifinals, and finals. A race can take around 4 minutes, so it can be about 12 minutes to get through a single course. But the big frustration is that your first 2 races are worthless. If you get first place in those 2 but place second in the final, you'll still get silver. Or worse, you can get first place twice and then completely blow the last race. Maybe you get stuck somewhere or you take the wrong path. Maybe you made too many enemies and they keep knocking you down this time. Or in this case, a fan blew me up into the air and wasted a bunch of time right before the finish line. Now you have to replay the level 3 more times. This happened to me fairly often. I don't mind replaying these levels 6 or 9 times, but I'd rather they be mixed into an actual circuit and not back to back. The Tokyo level has 3 laps in each round, so it's actually 9 times per attempt. This is one major flaw in the game that really got me annoyed with it. Going back to unlock some more levels started to feel like a chore after a while. When you do eventually win, you get stat points that you can give to your character. Speed, edging, tricks, stability. Every now and then you'll also gain a rank, going from amateur to pro, and then star and veteran and superstar and stuff like that.
Okay, so I wasn't exactly blown away by the race modes, but the racing isn't the name of the game. And the game has a show-off event mode as well, so let's take a look at that.
So in this mode, there are a bunch of extra obstacles in all of the levels, like rails and extra ramps and stuff like that. There are also these colored snowflakes, which give you different multipliers based on their size. This new stuff makes the levels play a lot differently. Also, there are no other racers that you have to compete with, just the high score. And there is technically a timer, but it's not a big deal. It's just there to make sure you don't cheat, like I did, just trying to hit the same half pipe for a while to rack up points. You do still have to keep moving through these levels and not bail too much to lose your momentum. These events start really easy, but they get hard quickly. You have to mix up your tricks so you don't get penalized for repeating, and you have to get a lot better at slides. There isn't a balance meter, really, but you fall off if you end up leaning too far to one side. It can be tough planning out the flips too, just making sure you have the right amount of airtime and you flip at the right angle so you can come around and land it instead of just spinning around on your head like a top. But the biggest draw to the game, what really sets it apart from other similar kinds of racing titles, is what happens when you fill up this boost or adrenaline. You unlock all of your Uber tricks, which are basically your Tony Hawk special tricks, except that they're completely insane. Breakdancing on your board, unhooking and doing kickflips, and all that other kinds of crazy stuff becomes available. It takes a ton of airtime, and for me it's more of a hassle to try to do one in a race because you never know how much airtime you'll get. But in trick mode, there are a ton of big ramps you can use. You can also spin and flip when you do them, and it makes them even crazier and harder to land. When you do an Uber trick, you fill out one of the letters in Tricky here at the top of the meter. If you manage to fill up the whole word, you'll get permanent boost and the ability to do Uber tricks whenever you want. When you beat all of the events, you'll unlock a few stages that you can only play in free ride mode. They're pretty cool, especially this mega park course. With no time limit, you can actually take a break and hit all the same obstacles a few times. It might have been cool to get this one as a training level at the beginning of the game though, so you could use it to learn how the game works.
So SSX Tricky might not have been the best game in this series for me to play. Since it wasn't numbered, I actually thought it was later in the series. I might have done better picking out one of the other ones to play for the channel. Which game in the series is the best? Let me know in the comments, and also let me know if the reboot is any good. I'm curious about that too. I don't think I'm going to do another SSX game this winter, but there's always next year. So, is this game worth playing today? You know, I didn't get to test this again these days, but I remember having a lot of fun playing head-to-head with friends. If you've got good memories of that too, it might be worth playing for a few bucks. Otherwise, I would recommend one of the later games, or maybe even Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. The PS2 version is supposed to be a bit too easy, but it's not a bad game if you think of it like SSX with a skateboard. You can see my full review of the Wii version here. But if you're mostly in it for the tricks and you want something a little more serious, I would check out the Amp series, especially number 2 and also Infinite Air. You can see my reviews of those games on my snowboard playlist. Well, that's it for this time. It's still winter for a little while, so I'm going to be trying to put out a few more videos of snowboard reviews soon. I'm not sure exactly what they'll be yet, but to make sure you don't miss them, hit the subscribe button on the screen right now. It's the circle with my logo in it. After that, here are some more videos that I mentioned earlier that you might want to check out. Thanks for watching.